30. He separates. He's to the 20, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Florida State. Warwick done on third down.
Winky looking Winky. Wants to throw the knockout punch to Warwick. Warwick open. Touchdown. He does a touchdown. He did catch it. Touchdown, Florida State. Oh, Peter Warwick, how'd you do that?
Kermit Whitfield to the left side. A hole to the 30. Kermit Whitfield to the 30. To the 20. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, FSU. Kermit Whitfield. A 100-yard touchdown.
Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the other.
It's caught. It's caught. It's caught.
For the end zone battle. Coleman. Touchdown.
We're doing it for everybody. We're doing it big all over the country, all over the world. And I'm proud. I'm proud to say I'm a Florida State Seminole.
Welcome, everyone, to the Garnet and Old Show. All of us are pumped for this week's show. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. I'm Ryan. That's Vince. All of you, all 4,000 of you that joined us last week for the Garnet and Old Show, thank you so much for your support. Vince, how are you today, my friend?
I'm getting over being sick, Ryan, but I am ready for this show. 4,000 people. It's amazing. Ryan and I can't thank you all enough for paying attention to this show we've been doing. And if you would, smash the like button, subscribe. It really helps us out a lot, and gets this show out to more fans, more Seminoles, more of FSU Twitter.
It really does help get the word out there. I mean, last week was one of our all-time highest viewed shows. We've had a few that were higher, but thank you guys so much for watching. But let's get into it, Vince. I do like to start the show ever since the travesty of 2 weeks ago. I like to start the show with this banner here. Screw ESPN eternally.
I'll drink to that.
All right, Vince. What I want to start off with is the quarterback talk. Let's start there.
Yeah.
We have a lot of portal talk. I mean, I'm talking, let's go right into the recruiting and portal. And by the way, for all of you watching live, which many of you are, questions, comments, throw them into the comment section. We'll try to put them live on the Garnet and Old Show for all of us to see. We love fan interaction here. But Vince, we're hosting, by the way, for this conversation, I'm going to refer to DJ as just DJ, so I don't have to pronounce the last name over and over and over again. But Florida State hosting both Cameron Ward and DJ. How are you feeling, Vince? What are your thoughts?
I'm just going to go with ukulele for now until such time as I need to really know how to say it. I'm probably good with either one of them. And the fact that the coaches are spending so much time looking for someone should give everybody, should calm everybody's nerves about, like, do we need one? If they're looking for one, we need one, right? These guys are going to come in. They're both going to be coming on visits over the next 4 or 5 days, not at the same time. And they're going to determine, which one maybe is the better fit, which one fits not only from a playing perspective, but from a culture perspective, and also from a budget perspective, right? All this plays into that. And if they don't, I'm confident in what this staff has done over the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confident that if one of these two does not match exactly what they need, then they won't do anything.
Yeah,
they're not going to scramble, and they're not going to overpay. They're not going to sacrifice the culture, and they're not going to pick up a body just to pick up a body. I'm confident of those things, and I think Florida State fans that have paid attention, you should be of that same mindset as well.
Yeah,
I'm not going to ever tell people how to feel, but I think they've shown us enough competence and confidence and know-how and being prepared to do the right thing.
Yeah, if this staff had not had such success in the transfer portal with who they hit on, who they didn't hit on, as well as an undefeated season, sure, maybe you would have some more concerns, Vince. But with the efforts over the past 2 seasons, specifically in the transfer portal, and what that has meant for the wins on the field, you really have no choice but to trust the staff implicitly, because regardless on what we think of the players, which I think fair to say we both think Cameron Ward would be a better prospect from just a quarterback standpoint, but I also think he would be the more costly as far as money and NIL. So I almost feel like they're meeting with Cameron Ward because they'd love to have him. It's one of those, we'd love to have you. What is it going to take? And if it's too high, I actually think DJ coming into town and meeting with them is almost like their monetary backup plan. But it does tell you one thing loud and clear, Vince, and that's they don't think that Tate is the answer next year. And I believe that they don't think that Brock is ready. Not that he's not a future answer, but that he's not ready. We saw the deer in the headlights a little bit, coming into that game against Louisville. And so I think the coaching staff is looking at it and say, listen, we're Florida State. We want to live perennially now in that 10-plus win territory. How do we do that? If they believe that there's a quarterback out there that isn't going to cost them a fortune, that is an upgrade from what's currently on the roster, they're going to do it. And we should be okay with that. It's the modern world of college football. If this was 10, 15 years ago, you'd be like, feeling bad for the kids that are already on the roster. But it doesn't matter. Those same kids on the roster, half of them are bouncing, in the portal themselves. So it's one of those things you really are to a point now where if you're a fan of a university, Florida State for us, you really invest in the school itself, the athletics themselves, and the coaching staffs, because the players more and more are going to come and go.
Yeah, they are going to come and go. And I was having a conversation with my daughter a little bit ago, who is wholeheartedly Noel, like to the core, and knows quite a bit more about what's going on with the program than a lot of fans that I've come in contact with. She was trying to get across to me that she feels bad for Tate because, how rude, in her words, like how rude is it that, they're going out to look for another quarterback. And I was explaining to her that, Tate's been in the program for 4 years, and you're not going to, this is Florida State, right? It's not a program that, especially now, like we don't want to take a step backwards.
Yeah.
And if the coaches were confident that Tate could get us to 10 wins, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yep.
Maybe they're confident that Tate is, 8 or 9 win guy, right? And if DJ or Cam can get you another 1 or 2 wins, it's worth it. Right?
That's
it's
the
worth
difference
it.
with the 12-team playoff between not making the playoff and making the playoff.
There's no love lost. I mean, Tate has been a program guy for 4 years now. He could have bounced long ago if he wanted to. And he may end up, you never know, and you would not fault him for that. All these kids are competitors and they want to play. So if he wants to find another place where he's going to play, you wouldn't fault him for that. And I don't know that he would do that or not. But, when you're talking about players, it's like a 1-year cycle these days, right?
Yeah.
It's like you never know who's going to be on your team from 1 year to the next, even with the great culture that we have that's been built over the last 3 years, 4 years. There are still guys that still want to play more. And so regardless of the culture, they may look to bounce. And it's
Right.
not anything, as Knowles, because we would never bounce. Like as fans, we would never bounce. We have a hard time like understanding that mentality, but it's not the same way for the players.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about guys going in the portal or, claiming to go into the portal, you have to kind of take your emotions out of that.
Yeah, so Vince, one thing I want to bring up, and there's a question in the comment section we're going to get to.
We're going to get to that, by the way.
It's our next topic. So sit tight, Kirk. We're going to get to you. you have to look at it, even if you don't want to, as a business. If you were running a multi-million-dollar business and you had, let's say, the quarterback is the equivalent of a important manager, and that manager had been there a while, and there was a director level position coming open, if you felt that that guy was a perfect fit and was a home run in a director level role, then you wouldn't bring someone externally. You wouldn't post that job externally. You would take the internal guy. But if you feel there's too many things that you've seen over that 4 years of working with the guy, that the best situation is you go external and find someone who might be a director level role first day, instead of having to really, really learn and ramp up on the job. You're going to do that, and you would be negligent as a business owner if you did not do that. So equate that to football. They've seen tape more than any of us, the coaching staff has. So they have seen the good, the bad, and the in between. If they thought that they had the next Jameis Winston on the roster, we wouldn't even be entertaining any visits. And listen, I want to prepare everyone. There is a situation in which, in the next 5 days, DJ or Cam announce that they're transferring to Florida State, and then you get a immediate announcement where Tate Rodemaker has announced he plans on entering the transfer portal, and none of us would begrudge him for it. Now, does that suck because you be in the bowl game with with Brock Purdy, with basically playing your quarterback that's not ready, that showed he's not ready? Yeah, that would kind of suck, but it is what it is. I mean, the Orange Bowl right now and a lot of these bowl games are glorified spring games anyways. But
Yeah,
listen,
I want to jump in here, Ryan, and just also talk about how fans compare what's happening now with back in the old days, right? And when I'm saying people get emotional about these things and about people that you've grown to love as a player, right? Because you're watching them all the time and you watch them grow, and then when this type of adversity comes their way, and then all of a sudden they're not going to wear garnet and gold anymore, people start saying, well, back in the day, the guys in the old days wouldn't have done that. You're wrong.
yeah, if the NIL existed, they definitely would have. Think of
If
Deion
they
Sanders. Come on.
Absolutely. If they had the opportunity back in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 70s, players want to play. Players
Yep,
want to
and
play.
they want to make money.
And they want to make money. So, we all kind of look at these garnet and gold glasses in the rearview mirror and talk about how, when Bobby was around, they'd bring a quarterback in and he'd sit for 3 years before he had a chance to start. It was always a junior before. Man, that's only because they didn't have any other choice.
Yeah.
And
where are you going to go?
and yes, you're going to have a handful of guys that are bleed garnet and gold no matter what, and they're going to stick it out. You're always going to have those types. But we have to quit. I think we have to quit romanticizing the way things used to be, because those opportunities weren't available to those players back then. And I'm glad for that, because it puts them in a different echelon in my brain, right? So, but yeah, they absolutely would have looked for opportunities to play.
Not only to play, but to earn some money while doing it.
Earn some money, yes.
Which me and Vince are both supporters, even though we think it's a little sloppy how it's being done right now, and we think that there's some cleaning up that could happen. We both agree that the NIL overall is a good idea.
Speaking of, I mean, if you're a fan and you're following recruiting and transfer portal and all this stuff, and you're hearing about transfer portal options that are asking for or are garnering, monies in the $3 million range, I would take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, unless you're a generational quarterback, maybe if let's say Jordan Travis was healthy and could transfer anywhere, and maybe that kind of person you would pay, since apparently he's the most valuable quarterback in the country. Without him, look at us. So
maybe, and it would take a school that is in dire need and is has an anxiety, like they feel like they have to overspend, like there's no control over the purse strings.
So you mean
Texas A&M,
Colorado?
for example, or Colorado, for example.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Other than that, though, take all these numbers with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and listen, I understand. I would say 90% of the people that watch the show or watch any of the other Florida State shows, you guys are only following, for the most part, Florida State news and recruiting. And so you see all these Florida State players going in the portal, and you think, what the heck? Is there something wrong? Is there a if you follow national recruiting in the big universities, let's say that everyone in the top 10 of the rankings, they're all bleeding players and having people go in the portal. But when that happens, these players think they're going to be the special one that goes in and everyone calls and just throws dollar bills at them. The more type of player that's in the portal, let's say a wide receiver or a defensive lineman or a linebacker. Let's say if you have a really good quarterback, there might be a handful of them, right, in the portal. If you're a wide receiver, thousands of good wide receivers. And so every time that more people enter the portal, not just Florida State players, those values, they're not getting the money they think they're going to get. So they might enter the portal now and then end up announcing they've decided to return to Florida State or whatever their school is. And listen, once you enter the portal, the school can tell you no thanks. But a lot of these players that we all love at Florida State, the coaches probably think highly of from a athletic standpoint. And I'm sure many of them, if they decide to come back, would have no problem taking them back. So until the deal is done, until someone puts the graphic up that they've transferred to X university, you're seeing a whole lot of smoke and a whole lot of threats and a whole lot of thinking that they're worth X. And maybe they are. But if they're not, don't be surprised if many of them end up saying, I've decided to stay, when really they didn't have any other good options. No one wants to leave Florida State and go to San Diego State. Well, I mean, except AJ Duffy, but
well, he does, and
yeah.
But for him, it's probably a great move for him, right? And
I was
so
surprised. I was thinking we'd get a little bit higher echelon than that for him. Like I was thinking like a Wake Forest or a
Well,
a
he's from the West Coast, so it makes sense for him to go closer to home for that. And these guys that I've seen a lot of people that I follow on social media. They're really bright. I mean, really bright people that are very bright in terms of not only the team but also financial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about how these players are getting a real taste of what capitalism is all about, and what the market drives, right? So, for example, these players may have somebody in their ear, family, handlers, friends, whoever it is that's in their circle, telling them, hey, you should be making more money. And so they're putting something out on social media, and then they are, they're trying to, shake dollars from the tree, only to find out that when they get into that market, like you said, what these people in the background have been telling them they're worth is way lower than what the market is demanding of them.
Yeah.
If you're the only receiver in the portal, your market's going to be higher. But if you're one of 1,000, then that's totally different. And that's one of the things that I don't like about what's going on right now, is that you have a lot of young people that don't necessarily have the background or the right support systems around them, coaching them, into well thought out decisions. Because you're right, they could put themselves in the portal in a school, and depending on the way they do it, the school has no obligation to take them back.
Yeah.
And so there were a couple of Florida State players that put themselves in the portal, and or posted on social media that they were going to go into the portal, and did it in a certain way.
Yep.
And then others did it in a different way.
Yep.
And I believe some of those players would be okay to come back, and maybe others wouldn't, because of the way it all went down. Words. Hey, Ryan, you and I have talked about this for years outside of football, in work, in our life.
Mhm.
The way you treat people follows you. The way you treat people and the way you converse and communicate with people follows you in every aspect of your life.
Mhm.
And if you don't go about that the right way, you run the risk of that coming back to bite you.
Speaking of coming back to bite you, Vince, I want to have a little fun for a second. Sometimes you hate when I do this, but
Oh, I
I want
love
to.
it.
All right, Vince. Let me
Oh boy.
let me pull this up here.
By the
All
way,
right.
this is a little cough syrup is what I'm having here.
Are you seeing my screen, Vince?
You haven't put it up on the
Oh yeah, here we go.
you got to
Are
share
you
it.
familiar with this account, Vince?
Yes, I'm very familiar with this.
All right. So those of you who
We're
are
giving this
listening,
guy too much pub, by the way.
but if you want to follow someone and just be entertained by his reaction to other people commenting, so this guy who claims to be a
In the know.
journalist and in the know, he says he's a writer. He's one of the biggest writers. Vince, he
I'm a
runs
writer too, by the way.
yeah, he has his own like Squarespace site that he built and has 1,500 followers. But listen, he put up this the other day saying, confirmed, that Cameron Ward is going to be a hurricane and it's going to happen. So when that didn't happen, Vince, I don't know if you ended up seeing what he ended up reposting. But people were giving him crap because it didn't happen, right? Look at this.
Well, yeah, when it
Uh,
doesn't go your way, you kind of, I never really meant that, or it really wasn't that important to me, or why is everybody making such a big deal about this? And this is the risk you run when you want to, chase for social media clout. You know, I I don't care about that. You don't, Brian. I know you don't care about that.
yeah,
And we claim it in our byline, like no inside info, no contacts, right? So,
yeah.
but if you're going to put something out there, you better be ready for the backlash because uh, the social media throng they do not have any discernment on giving
Yeah.
you the backlash.
Speaking of backlash, shall we talk Kirk Herbstreit?
Yeah, we're doing the record. Let me think if there's anything else
We
recruiting
have
portal. Oh,
one crystal
you
ball
want to talk about?
change, but that's still not official, so I don't want
Yeah,
to
I
bring
think
it
that's
up.
pretty much a done deal, though.
Yeah, we could talk
The
about that next week, though.
Yeah, but Marvin Jones Jr. We should probably mention that Marvin
Oh
Jones
yes, how
Jr.
could I forget? I'm
is
excited.
is going to be visiting Florida State, and I don't have any, I don't have any problem. Like I listen to Seymour Stack's Space with
Mhm.
Spiratics. Those are some guys you can follow that have some good stuff out there, and they're no BS. Um, Apparently, there's another Georgia player that's coming on this visit as well. That's been kind of smoke behind that for a couple weeks now. So it's not just Marvin Jones Jr. There would be another, you know, highly coveted player, we believe, that's going to be joining on that visit from Georgia.
Absolutely, absolutely. If
So,
you're
so going back
following
to what you're saying,
Shade
Ryan,
Tree, yeah.
it's not just Florida State.
Hmm.
You got Georgia, who's a two-time defending national champion. Their people are going in the portal. For us thinking it's just, you got to take the blinders off. You got to get out of the echo chamber and
Yep.
realize this is happening across the country to every school, regardless of, how good the school is.
Yes, and Marvin Jones Jr. Is in the portal, so that's part's official. We know that he's in the portal
He is in the
from
portal.
Georgia. His dad, the legendary Shade Tree himself, has been tweeting some mysterious tweets and some very vague, but a lot of people are taking it to mean that he kind of knows what this is going to end up being, and we hope so. We hope Marvin Jones Jr. joins the Knowles. What a boon that would be, right to the next year. Immediate. You're talking about an immediate impact, Vince.
Yeah, let me add this in here. Kirk says it's surprising that he would want to leave Georgia. Not really. And let me
wanted to be at Florida
briefly
State. Yeah.
let me briefly say why. When we were recruiting him 2 years ago, it came down to Florida State and Georgia. And I believe at the time, the Battle's End really wasn't going at
Mhm.
that point, right? And Florida State really hadn't done what it has done since then.
Yeah.
And so if you're a top level recruit, you're probably going to lean toward going toward a national champion winner, right?
Yeah.
So
We were 7 and
I'm
6
sorry,
that
hold
year.
on. National invitational winner. So
Yeah, we were 6 and 6 or whatever that year,
right. Even if his heart was with Florida State, that's a business decision. But now 2 years later, he's had some injury problems and he maybe hasn't gotten the type of opportunities that maybe he thinks he should get. Decides to go into the portal, and Florida State is back.
Yeah.
So it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, what I like to tell everyone is if you take current Florida State and current Georgia and take our record right now and their record right now, and you rewound 2 years ago, and he was making his decision over again, he would have gone with Florida State. That's where he wanted to go, but he was looking at it and not seeing a very, very high trajectory yet. It hadn't happened yet, and all these guys, he wants to go to the league. He wants to be, cream of the crop. He wants to play for national championships. And so if you're seeing a team that, you could like Mike Norvell, you could love Florida State, but if they're a 500 team, you won't get noticed. You won't get attention. You won't get draft board stuff. So
That's
yeah,
exactly what I was going to say, is that you may love Mike Norvell. You may agree with everything he's saying. He may speak to your soul.
mhm,
But 2 years ago, if you go back and listen to our show 2 years ago, what we were saying was they got to win some games to show proof of concept.
mhm,
And then you'll start to see this thing escalate.
yeah,
But that's when
elevate.
Marvin Jones Jr. was looking.
Yeah.
Before those escalators started to happen. So anyway,
Vince, I want to take a quick break here before we start this next topic about Kirk Herbstreit, just to put the banner up one more time. So, Vince, did you hear the story of the former ESPN president today?
absolutely.
All right, so we got to talk about this first because it leads into the Kirk Herbstreit
Briefly, yeah.
narrative. So, the former president of ESPN,
John
I think
Skipper.
he was there until like 2019 or 2020.
Skipper? Is that the name, Skipper?
Yeah, Skipper. Yep. He was on a podcast, sports radio, podcast kind of thing. And the question was asked kind of like his thoughts on the playoff committee, how they choose and just the general involvement, like insinuating that, hey, let's get some answers to people out there about is ESPN involved at all in these kind of things. And he thought when he was about to talk that what he was about to say would show that in no way was this illegitimate this year. But what actually happened was a Freudian slip in which he told the absolute truth. And what he said was, everyone, and this is maybe not an exact quote, but this is the gist of it. He said, no, we don't. We don't pick the teams. ESPN doesn't pick the teams for the playoff, but we try very, very hard, and that's the word he used, very hard, to influence the decisions. And just by saying that, not 24 hours after the Attorney General filed an anti-competitive, lawsuit, not what do you call it, antitrust lawsuit.
Yeah.
Listen, if you thought that this was just conspiracy tinfoil hat, a bunch of Florida State fans just complaining, the former ESPN head of ESPN just told you that they tried very hard, not like sometimes, or very hard to affect.
To influence. Those were the words.
Influence.
We try very hard to influence. Those are the words.
And so when Kirk Herbstreit, which by the way, I think as Noel fans, we all enjoyed his, we pushed him to the brink. It sounded like in the
Tyler
way
from Spartanburg.
Yeah, without grammar or periods in the right places, sometimes it just appeared to be a run-on sentence. Kirk Herbstreit just went on like it felt like a 2 a.m. like just diatribe, like he was writing a book and couldn't go to sleep and he just stayed up. I'm talking the writer, Jack Nicklaus in The Shining, that kind of thing.
Capital letters,
Yeah.
exclamation points. It
In
was
which he says two
fantastic.
things that are very different, but he tries to act like they're the same. He says, because Alabama is better, period. That's a factual statement. And then he goes on to say, and I'm allowed to have my opinion. When you say Alabama is better, period, that is not an opinion. That is a statement of fact. If you want to give your opinion, you say, in my opinion, I believe
Right.
Alabama is better. But this whole time he said there's no listen, we don't get the rankings until 2 minutes before guys, it appeared last season on SportsCenter an hour before the playoff committee show, okay? They
It's
have it
all
well in
false.
advance. The helmets moving around in the background to match the exact rankings. And now we have the ESPN former head saying that they try very hard to influence the decision. Though, and here's what Kirk always says, he's very careful with his words. He always says, listen, I'm just giving you my opinion. I don't get to pick the playoff people, who's in the playoff. No, but you're one of the biggest commentators in the biggest network who has people who have relatives working on the committee, and that network has admitted that they try to influence. That alone is not anti-competitive.
It absolutely is. And no matter what he says, and he says these things like we're naive. Like, okay, have there been some naive things and some kind of lowbrow things tweeted to him? Sure, there are, because when you talk about social media, you're going to get the wide range of people,
Yeah.
right? But don't insult our intelligence, right? And this is what I responded to his rant, and I just basically said, own it, just own it. That's all anybody's saying is own it. Own the fact that your opinion had the opportunity to sway what happened. Just own it.
Yeah.
And own that it's an opinion. And if our followers and our listeners out there, if you know any Alabama fans, you can tell them and ask them to watch the show. Just say, hey, I have no problem with Bama.
Yeah.
It's not their fault they got the benefit of the doubt because of past glory. They
Yeah,
did.
none of us are blaming Alabama. None of us are blaming Texas.
I'm not blaming them at all. But don't come at me or any Florida State fans saying Alabama would beat Florida State, because you don't know that.
Yeah.
You do
don't know
not know
that.
that.
And to insinuate that Florida State fans are crazy, that what little old me, Kirk Herbstreit, says could possibly influence the playoff committee, when the former head of ESPN just told you that's exactly what happens. And Vince, it's not only that they inadvertently, just by him being a media figure, can impact the viewpoints of the playoff committee, but that ESPN was actively trying to impact
They
it.
absolutely were. They absolutely were. And by the way, I think Kirk is taking the majority of the heat, but I don't think Reese Davis is getting enough heat. Right?
Yeah, he's just not
All of-
engaging on Twitter.
All of them really are part of this trying very hard to influence. All of them are. So don't think that they're not, and don't I now we've got a pinpointed offensive going to Kirk the Clown, which is appropriate. But don't think that other people aren't involved in this, because they all are. I mean, okay, so not Booger, right? But the majority of the talking heads at ESPN are. And what's really coming around to this is that I always had a little bit of a soft spot for Kirk, because of the way he deals with Lee Corso.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I'm over that soft spot. Kirk has become a caricature of himself in a lot of ways, almost like as much as Paul Feinbaum has become a caricature of himself. It's almost like watching reality show every day. I mean, I don't watch them anymore. And here's how petty I am. Here's how much of a fan I am. I don't watch ESPN. I don't have the app on my phone anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, and I know I'm just one guy, and it probably doesn't make a hill of beans. But you know what? I don't need to fill my mind with that drivel.
Yeah. No,
And
for
they
sure.
have proven it to be
Yeah.
nothing more than influence.
That's it. It's exactly what it is. It's spot on. And here's the thing. We're going to get into the Georgia senator here in a second, Kirk. Someone asked me the other day, a friend of ours asked us, well, what do you expect to happen based on this attorney general thing? Like, what could possibly, like, what is the end game here? Listen, no Florida State fans believe this is not going to change anything about but what it will do, and I think what all Florida State fans want is if there was antitrust, anti-competitive, any kind of conversations, text, emails, voting, swaying, we want that in the open so everyone will say, oh, Florida State fans aren't just putting on tinfoil hats. There was, look at this, look at that, look at this email. And listen, we're not going to get into politics, but on both sides over the last few years, we have seen what some emails and texts can bring a light to a lot of things, right? And people don't think that anyone's listening. I guarantee you, no one in that playoff committee or ESPN thought that this would end and maybe Florida State would be mad for a day or two and then get over it. They did not expect lawyers and attorney generals to get involved in this. And listen, what we want and what we're asking for, and this case is going to bring, is discovery. And in a case when there's discovery and they are, whether it be a subpoena or in a court case, required to submit all texts and data communications regarding communication with ESPN to the playoff committee or vice versa. If they find even one thing,
This has to be one thing
in which an email was sent to a playoff committee from anyone at ESPN saying, I think based on what we've seen, we think it should be Alabama or anything like that, or they would be a better from a viewership standpoint, anything like that. We got you.
It only takes one, Ryan. It only takes one. And that's why, and you can say, why does Florida State care about the disclosure of it? So obviously, like you said, this isn't going to change anything for this year, which is unfortunate because I was just saying a minute ago, this is probably my favorite Florida State team of all time.
Yeah.
National championships, whatever. This is probably my favorite team of all time. But what can come out of this if they find one thing? It's not about proving them like, yeah, you screwed FSU and they should have been in there. Yeah, of course, that's part of it. But the main thing is that now you have your contractual media partner inflicting material damage, financial damage, and repercussions on your contractual partner. And at
Vince,
that
what does
point,
that mean for Florida State?
And at that point, you basically say, okay, we're willing to forget about all this, but we're also going to scratch Florida State's name off of this grant of rights.
Mm-hmm. And we'll say, and if you are not going to let us out of this in some kind of terms that we can agree on,
then we're taking it to the hilt.
And again, especially if they find something that indicated that there was ESPN, which is supposed to be their partner as well as the SEC's partner, influencing against them in an anti-competitive way, then Florida State can say they acted unethically, the contract is null and void, and we're going to the court. And in the meantime, we're bouncing to the Big Ten, right? Which is what we think is going to happen, is something similar to that. But the most likely scenario is that ESPN says, we don't want any of that. We're going to settle. It's 120 mil. Florida State, go ahead, walk up for 120 mil, something like that. I'm not saying that would be the figure, but something much less.
We're just making up numbers.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They're going to find something.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like out of all the 13 people on the committee and the producers and the executives and the talking heads in all their communications, they were not smart enough to do all this in a way that couldn't be traceable.
Because they never thought this could happen.
Because they never thought it could happen. So when they ask for that disclosure, they're going to find some kind of email that says, it really would be more beneficial if Alabama got in rather than Florida State from a financial perspective.
Yes.
All they need.
Even if it's beating around that bush, that's all they need. And then Florida
And
State can
again,
walk.
I have no problem with Bama. They didn't do
Right.
anything wrong. They didn't do
Yeah.
anything wrong. So all these Bama fans that are, trying to go to the mat with, Bama would beat Florida State. I don't care about any of that. You got in there because of, past glory.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
Now, one thing I want to
Don't
bring
tell
up is
me, but don't tell me that Bama can beat Florida State. Just don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Because Florida State hasn't lost a game this year.
now, I don't think this will happen, Vince, but I do want to share what Kirk brought up, which I saw before we started the show tonight, is that a senator in Georgia has written a letter, an official letter to the CFP committee asking them and demanding, I think it's the wording in the letter, that Georgia and Florida State in the Orange Bowl be part of the playoff. Now, I don't know how that would, even if that was a realistic scenario, I don't know how you would work out a, 16 playoff, just because of like, how would you bracket that out? It wouldn't work. But listen, this is a guy saying, okay, Florida State, look at all the fans. All those fans are now like, yeah, rah, rah, go get them. This is a senator that probably wants some attention and wants to make their statement clear from Georgia. Because listen, Kirk Herbstreit in that rant said Oregon would beat Florida State, Georgia would beat Florida State, and most people have said on ESPN that Georgia's probably
Hold on. What a fool he is, first
Yeah.
of all. Okay, keep going.
Florida State, multiple people on that network have claimed that Georgia is just this incredible team. All up until they lost to Alabama, they were the number one team in the country by a mile. I heard every week on the playoff selection
Can't be
show
beaten.
do you remember they kept saying they're separating themselves now? They're just they kept saying that they're separating themselves as the number one. Then they lose once. So what they're saying, what they're telling you all out there is that Florida State could never beat Alabama, but are better than Georgia.
Yeah.
A game in which was decided by a hair between Alabama and Georgia, right? And so when they say, and Kirk says, and ESPN says, Georgia would beat Florida State, well, that's how you know this thing is all dog and pony show. Because if that were true, Florida State would be ranked 7 or 8.
Or 8 or 9.
Yeah, they would be. The only reason they are 5 is because the playoff committee knew that if they dropped them in a lower, it would look really bad on them. And so, hey, we'll make it sound like they missed it by this much. It sucks what happened with the injury, but hey, good news. The 12-team playoff is next year, right? So this won't be an issue soon, and that's why we're doing it. So for all you Florida State fans, 12-team playoff will solve all your worries. It sucks that you guys missed it. We wish Jordan Travis had been healthy, blah, 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 blah. I am in the mindset right now, based on what I've learned since it happened, Vince, that even if Jordan Travis had not gotten hurt, Alabama still would have been put in above Florida State.
Absolutely. Because the bed was already made.
Yeah.
And we knew the bed was made if you go back and listen. And I know I was the one saying, if we win, we're in. And I understand. I'm going to own that.
Everyone was.
Because as a streamer, as a content producer, I'm going to own the things that I say, unlike other people, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to own that. Because I didn't think logic could be distorted as much as it has been.
Yeah.
But, when you go back and you look at when that first started, before he was hurt, that whole campaign, and that's what it was. It was a campaign to try very hard to influence. That's exactly what it was, to influence the committee. And they were successful. Florida State got left out of it. And all of the people that are on board with it are typically teams that made the top 4, right?
Yeah.
The majority of teams that did not get in or would have no chance of getting in are pretty much of the mindset that Florida State got screwed. But one of the things they tout so much is, well, if you look at the Vegas odds, Florida State would be anywhere from a touchdown underdog to an 18-point underdog to any of the top 4 teams. Well, why are we number 5? Because we're a 14-point underdog to Georgia.
We should be 10.
Vegas odds don't matter.
Yeah.
This is what I've been trying to tell people. So
yeah,
it's disingenuous. It's intellectually dishonest. Just be happy your team made it to the pageant. Just enjoy it. Florida State didn't get invited to the pageant. And it was a concerted effort to influence the committee.
Yeah, plain.
Let's just own it.
And listen, I would have a ton more respect for Kirk Herbstreit and everything if they would say, listen, if Kirk Herbstreit had come out the day after and said, listen, we have a platform. My opinion is that Alabama's the best team over Florida State. And if my opinion swayed some members of the committee, so be it. That's how I feel. And they can take that at the committee however they want it. And I don't intentionally try to sway them, but you know, I
know it could.
But I know it could. If he had said that, at least we're being
What are
honest.
we doing? What are we doing?
Then
like all the focus is on the committee.
Yeah.
So I know, Ryan, that you tweeted at him and invited him to come on the show.
I sure did.
Absolutely. All of our subscribers, listeners, post this link to this show at Kirk the Clown. I call him a name, but I shouldn't do that.
Now, if we're going to invite him on the show, Vince, we got to have some decorum here, sir.
And I will ask him direct questions, right? Because, but he won't. I mean, we obviously know he won't. But it would be awesome, right? Garnet and Old featuring Kirk Herbstreit would be great.
Well,
but post this link to this show.
Just the dog.
Maybe the support dog. But the thing of it is he won't do a show. And he won't do a show because he's going to be asked specific questions that you and I or any Florida State streamer, media personality, whatever, are going to not let him off the hook for.
And we would do
We're not going to let him dance around.
We would do it in a way that's respectful and well thought out and reasonable, where we say, Kirk, you cannot come out and say that it's impossible that you could possibly influence the college football playoff committee when your former boss said that you got the network, maybe not you specifically, but the network tries to. And listen, if you say it's my opinion, then don't say it's a fact, period, and then say it's my opinion. You have to say it's my opinion in everything you say, or it's a fact. And there's no way in college football and in football in general that you can, for a fact, say a team is better than another team unless they play.
This is what I've been saying and what you've been saying and what anybody with any kind of level of logic in their brain says. And this is something that, peek behind the curtain, our nation and the world struggles with at this point is that what are facts and what are opinions?
Mm-hmm.
Facts are things that you can prove, like things that are cut and dry, like wins and losses.
Yeah, Florida State was ranked, whatever in offense. Florida State,
right?
Those are data points.
Those are facts.
Mm-hmm.
When you fortune tell and try to, prognosticate about outcomes of things, those are not facts. They aren't facts. So don't call them facts. And whatever. So we can go over and over. But Shannon's saying, tell him in Ireland. And I hope I have the opportunity to do that. Currently working on the plan for Garnet and Old's trip to Ireland, by the way,
yes.
Ryan.
Yes. And Vince, keep it to funny or even a little rude chants and signs. We are not condoning anyone out there on Twitter. I saw something that Jeff Cameron, friend of the show,
not good,
retweeted. It wasn't him that said it, but he was basically saying this isn't cool to someone else who put like a picture of someone loading a gun and
not
saying, yeah, Jeff Cameron, friend of the show, he's been on the show actually before, and us and all the other media personalities, we absolutely think that that's abhorrent. I don't think Kirk Herbstreit's a horrible human being.
Not
That's
at
just,
all.
yeah. I think he's kind to the people that have met him and people. But listen, we can also disagree with his opinion, and that's what we're doing. And you can let him know you're displeased with his opinions and how he feels
Mostly
the world works.
right, and mostly because he's touting his opinions as facts.
Yeah.
And not owning the fact that what he says carries great weight. Philip says, "My kids know facts because their kindergarten teacher taught them." That's when you learn it.
Yep.
You may learn it before then, but at least your kindergarten teacher will let you know what facts are.
I would be very happy for you to go to Ireland. Hey, Vince, I do want to let our listeners know we will be doing a Garnet and Old show next week. And I want to say that specifically because I know a lot of podcasters and YouTubers take, the final 2 weeks of the year or 3 weeks of the year off and play, maybe some old shows or whatever. We want
Best
to,
of.
yeah, we want to we don't have a best of. We only have the worst of, Vince and Ryan.
You only have the worst stuff.
So we're going to
mostly the live stream of the college football invitational reveal.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, we're going to do our show next week because let's be honest, what else are we doing on a Thursday? We're still 4 days away from Christmas on that day. And then the next week after that will be our official Orange Bowl preview show, which we're going to get in deep. Hey, listen, I'm going to watch the game. Vince is going to the game, I believe.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're still going to support the team. And for those of you who are saying I'm not going to go or I'm not going to watch because screw don't take it out on the team. The team, the players that are going to play in that game for Florida State are the players that are going to be here next year that aren't going to the draft and are in the portal. So you should show them your support, and be excited that we get to see some of those players because those are going to be the people we really count on next year. So I want to encourage people to focus on the kids in the game and not necessarily what happened with ESPN. You can still have in the back of your head, and I know I'm already knowing, Vince, we're all going to get frustrated when the broadcasters inevitably start talking about this during the game, and that Florida State fans might be a little unreasonable. I'm sure it's going to come up, but we can still enjoy the football game and have fun with it. But I do want to let you know, me and Vince do not anticipate missing a single show throughout the holidays. We should do a Garnet Old show every week. And then listen, before you know it, after the Orange Bowl, Vince and Ryan are going to jump straight into the basketball season and baseball season talk.
The basketball season will be a little sad, but
record ratings for the Garnet and Old show coming soon.
But you got to live through the bad to get to the good, and the basketball team's living through a lot of bad right now.
Hey, Vince, we started the show when on the Jacksonville State year,
Oh boy.
And look at where we're at now, undefeated.
And
for all of you that stuck with us, thank you so much, because we started, and I kid you not, first of all, the first year we didn't even have a YouTube channel.
No, we didn't.
The next, last season, we got the YouTube channel and had about 10 people in a 3-week period watch the videos. And then multiple times this season, we've had thousands of views on our videos and hundreds of people following our show. And we want to keep doing more. This year we did live shows with our fans, which was awesome. We did pregame and postgame coverage at almost every single game live in one form or another. And we want to do more of that. And we want to put on a higher production value. We want to have more live shows. So to do that, what you can do for us is share it with your friends, like the channel, every video, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're just watching
YouTube, subscribe.
And listen, we love our community and we want to do more next year. So stick with us and we'll continue to grow. And we hope, Vince, by next year, maybe we're up to over 1,000, subscribers and multiple thousands of views every single week. Because right now, last week, 4,000 views. I think it's at 4.5. It's awesome, but we want that every week.
Here's the thing, too, is that Ryan and I know that there are a lot of Florida State outlets as far as media is concerned. I mean, there just are. I mean, it may be the most saturated market in terms of schools, right? There are a lot of podcasts, a lot of shows out there, and Ryan and I try to do things a little different. That's why we say no inside info, no context, no problem. Hopefully everyone's not coming here for breaking news.
Yeah, we don't
Right.
put
This is
inflammatory pictures up, and
this is more about fan and in-depth discussion about the team and how we should frame it as fans. And hopefully that's speaking to you guys. If it's not, please let us know
yeah,
some things that we could do better, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is something we talk about all the time. Like, what else can we do to engage more people?
Yeah.
And so if you have any ideas, you know, shout out to Ryan, Big Papa East, or
On Twitter.
VC Knoll. Let us know, because Ryan and I would do this anyway, because we just talk about the team all the time. But we really want to build up the user base.
Yeah, and I promise one thing to all the followers out there: we will never put a Mike Norvell with a laser beam and a photo up for our YouTube show that says FSU loses who with a big question mark and an arrow pointing to it. That's not what we're doing. We're not trying to clickbait you
We don't need
into watching our
clickbait.
videos.
I mean, that's how, to be honest with you, that's how a lot of those things get started. They get a clickbait and then people just subscribe and then they forget that they subscribe.
Yeah.
Right. But this is more honest, heartfelt conversation about the school that we all care about. That's what we wanted this to be. And so we would appreciate, as Ryan has already said, let everybody know.
Absolutely. And for all of you watching out there, thank you so much for commenting. It's so much more fun this year than it was last year because we have so many more comments. We have
Crickets.
hecklers, right, in our
We
shows.
have had hecklers. We've
which
had
is
some
awesome.
really, that was fun.
We don't know necessarily always show those on the screen, but you guys should see some of the comments we see, which crack me and Vince up. We talk about it after the show, but thank you guys so much for watching tonight. You can watch us every Thursday live at 7:00. Vince and I occasionally also do solo content, and if any news breaks over the next week of quarterbacks coming to Florida State or Marvin Jones Jr., Vince or myself or both of us will hop on a show and do a breaking news type show like we did for the college football playoff selection show, similar kind of thing. We will try to cover that. But thank you everyone so much for watching. It's been a great year.
Two things, right?
For Garnet and Old.
Two things. Thing number one, the Battle's End is continuing to sign up members with a $500,000 up to $500,000 match through December 22nd. If you haven't done so and you have the means, you want to help out the program, do it. The second thing is send the Chiefs all the damn time.
All the damn time. And
every time.
Send the goldfish all the damn time.
Send the goldfish. And don't kick them out of the game.
Don't kick them out of the game. Thanks everyone for listening. Be well. Garnet Old, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Go Noles.
Go Noles.